Hi, welcome to the Sifu Mimi Chan Show. Thanks for joining the conversation. Coach Dan John and I continue our ongoing Sword in the Stone journey, using this classic book as a guide to examine the world we live in today. As an exceptional educator and mentor to many, I'm so grateful Dan continues to take time out of his busy schedule to geek out and philosophize with me. In this episode, we explore parallels between films like Star Wars, Game of Thrones, The Hobbit, The Iliad, and so many more. He also shares some wisdom nuggets on being present and situational awareness. I hope you enjoy this episode as much as I enjoy talking to Dan. If you love this podcast, please share it with others and rate it on your platform of choice. You can also take one extra step to show your love by donating to the show on my website or patreon.com/sifumimichan. Thank you for the support. I appreciate you. For comments or suggestions, reach out on social media at sifumimichan. Now, on with the show. Hello, Dan. So good to see you.
How are you?
I'm great. Always nice of you to make time for me amidst your busy schedule. We were talking off air that you've got a lot of big events coming up, and so busy, busy bee.
Got two books coming out, got three weddings coming up, got my, and I mean, I don't know when this is coming out, but hopefully the war won't impact all my international travel this year.
Oh, yeah.
It's already a problem.
It's definitely a problem.
You
Flights
know,
are crazy.
yeah, being from a military family, the first thing you learn is I'm always anti-war.
Hmm.
It breaks my heart a little bit to think that some of our young people are going to be, well, and of course the victims of war are always, never the politicians hiding behind their desks. It's always
No. Yes, for
okay.
sure.
But yeah,
Those
so
that
I'm very,
those that get to speak on others' behalf that
yes, yes,
are not the ones out on the
yeah,
line. Yeah, for sure. It's
yeah,
quite something. It's been very disruptive around the world too. It's not
yeah,
like just us, right? Like everybody is impacted. So it's been kind of crazy. But yeah, I definitely hope your travels are safe
yeah.
and
Thank
unimpacted.
you.
I know getting flights are
So,
like insane right now.
yeah. So you chose chapter 15 because that's logical. So chapter 15 of The Sword and the Stone, the 1938, 1939 version that we've been reading is a real there's a couple of things I've seen before. Like I'll give you a couple of examples. Right in the beginning of Treasure Island, there's a scene, I don't remember the young person's name. Sorry. I just where he goes into a saloon, a bar, and there's all these old sailors and pirates and you're about to have an adventure. They're in Star Wars, there's the cantinist. By the way, I call it Star Wars because that's what the movie should be called, not A New Hope, because no one, yeah, that's a generational difference between me and a lot of younger people. Those one, two, and three were horrible. Four is a good movie.
Yeah.
Uh, Star
I'm
Wars.
with you. Four, five,
What?
six.
Yeah, when Luke goes into the cantina and are these your droids? No
Yeah.
droids. And Greedo gets shot and all that.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Same, same thing. You're about to start this adventure, but before you do, we go into a place where we just to get exposed to all these different things. Even though the last season was horrible, in the Game of Thrones, the one before the big fight between them and the Dead Walkers or whoever they were in the show,
Yeah, the Night Walkers.
Night Walkers. I'm trying so hard to forget the last season just to keep my sanity.
I
But
understand.
when Brianna becomes a knight, same thing. Bunch of people drinking too much. Bad things are about to happen.
Mhm.
And well, what's great about this particular chapter is, we're all sitting around at a banquet and we meet all the different dogs and we meet all the different characters. King Pellinor is talking about how comfortable his bed is. Well, there's foreshadowing about what's going to happen in the next chapter. There's everyone's patting King Pellinor on the back, foreshadowing to the next chapter. They start singing. They bring the old guy out and he sings a song where a woman, I guess basically the woman is taken off her, accidentally showing her body. First the ankle and then, her foot, her ankle, and then, White doesn't share the rest. Then they sing, Oh Come All Ye Faithful. They sing this other song. They sing this other song. and the chapter sort of ends. It's a very quiet, very brief chapter, but I think it's one of those chapters, just like the other experiences I showed you. And I think for any of you who are writers, you got to have those quiet times, In good war movies, there's always those moments where they're either trying to sleep or they find some booze or they're taking a nap. And it's right before, a couple of them are about to die and bad things are going to happen. Now, in the boar hunt, there is a death, but we don't need to talk about it right now.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so
Did you
yeah,
see
so
1917 where it was like that almost all in one and it was like
yeah,
it was
yeah,
so great. I feel like even that, even though it was so intensive, had those quiet moments, like you said. Like it had like a moment where you saw them all like sleeping in the trenches, and it was like, even though there was still things happening around, you're right. There's always kind of that beat, a little bit of a breath.
yeah. And
I love
the,
that film.
the film that came out the following year, I think it was a remake. I want to say All Quiet on the Western Front, but it was a German show, and I felt the same thing. They were finding food and sneaking around and just trying their best to do what they had. So yeah, for me, this is a bit of a diving board chapter. Something's about to happen. We haven't yet popped off the edge. And it's still a marvelous chapter. Do you have any questions or concerns about this chapter? We should.
No, I mean, I kind of was coupling 14, 15 together because 14 is so short. And we kind of touched on it last time because it was like the
Oh,
setup. But 14 is also the one with the villains, which I had to like, okay, that's not villain. That's
no,
the
a person
feudal
from,
term for the tenants, right? Or the people
yeah,
on the
the word villa would come to us. Villa, a resident. But when I studied the Doomsday Book, well, this is, almost 50 years ago. Huh, wow. One of the things I did was I kept a running list. So when William the Conqueror defeated Harold Hardrada at the Battle of Hastings, 1066, not long after, he wanted to find out what he had won. So he sent his accountants out. Account comes from a county, and the person who keeps an eye on the finances is an accountant, and they had to say, what did I get? And so he went to Murray, Utah, and there was 12 cows, 8 pigs, three, and then these names would start. I remember the one called a comitatus. And to them, a comitatus was different than a thane, which was different than a villain, which was completely different than a serf, and absolutely different from a slave, and completely different from a freeman. So there, and they all understood those differences. And my students would ask me, well, how could they remember it all? And I said, I drove a Ford pickup. How many of you are confused? You drove a Lamborghini. Do you guys both see that those are? Oh yeah, yeah. Because when you have a when you have a common language, it's easy to have those little changes. So yeah,
Mhm.
the chapter before, we're still healing, right? Wart is still recovering, and the famous letter shows up. And I think we talked about it last time. Is that the king wants to use his forest for boar hunting,
Mhm.
and it upsets. Hector can't really say much because of the way
It's the
feudalism
rules,
worked. That
right?
was the rules, yeah.
And I think we touched on it, but I think one thing I would love to kind of hear your take on, especially in that chapter as we dive into 15 as well, is like kind of the that relationship, right? Because technically without Uther or all the other, you know, Sir Ector is the king of the land, like at that moment until he gets, oh yeah, that's right. This is not really my land. You know, all the animals like Robin Wood or Hood is allowed. He kind of lets him take a cattle now and then. He's like, "Oh, what's the big deal?" Like he's a lot, I don't want to use the word lenient, right? But he sees the benefit of helping out the community and kind of being like a team, you know, kind of loved by all a little bit in that regard, but then he was like really upset about, yes, the king saying that he has to have Master Twitey come, the huntsman, with his dogs, right? Like he was also really offended by the
Yeah.
fact that he has his own staff, his own resources. And
Yeah.
so I think there's a lot of, which you are, sir, like a really amazing leader. And I think there's a lot about leadership there that kind of, I think people maybe overlook a little bit, in the fact that we have different dynamics of leadership being shown
Yeah.
through Sir Ector's eyes, of course, in that chapter, right? Because
Well,
he's
yeah,
it's
because
his
it's almost we're inside of his thoughts for the
right,
bulk of the chapter. Yeah. The thing about feudalism is and actually it comes down to us. Americans, I know you have an international audience, but Americans are very funny people because our legal system comes from the English style, not the Napoleonic codes and stuff. So, you know, if I'm in a certain place and I cut across the street, I have friends who'll say, "Why don't you take the crosswalk?" And I'll be like, "Because there was no one around." At 3 in the morning, I go through I'll stop at a stoplight, but I'll go through it if there's no one around. Legally, I can get a ticket for both of those. But, I'm from a different tradition where rules are kind of. But what the reason I bring this up, in the feudal system, they had to have everything was contractual, and it was a big deal. So if you're my liege lord, you're the person I pledge my allegiance to. And one of the agreements is if I call you for a war, a battle, a fight, well, okay, I can only fight certain days of the year, and I'm only going to fight for you 8 days. On the ninth day, me and all my followers leave the group, whatever you want to call it, the camp. We go home. So you would have to come say to me on day 6 or 7, I need you longer because you guys are wonderful. Thank you, I would say. So to do that, I need more land to harvest. I need more forest land, and I only want to pay you instead of 6 cattle a year, just 5. You think that's a good deal? We rewrite a contract, and now the my allegiance to you, I fight more but pay less. And 5 years from now, that might change again. It all became very legalistic. And the other thing people usually miss about the feudal pyramid is it kept stacking up and up and up and up. So I had to be very careful about who my liege lord paid allegiance to. There is a war in England. Very few people remember it. I think it's the war between. There were two. There was a king and a queen at the same time, and I guarantee most of your audience never heard them, was Matilda and Stephen. And that's how you know if you know. Yeah, there you go. That's how you know if you know
I
English
don't
history.
know. I'll admit.
And I think at the end of it, it ended up be that the Plantagenets would be Henry II took over. Well, one of the problems was feudalism had already been around. So here's the problem I could be. I'm little Danny with my 200-acre thing. Well, you're my liege lord, but you align with Matilda, but your liege lord aligns with Stephen, and both of you want me to fight, but I have to fight 6 days for you and 9 days for your liege lord on the other side. So it just becomes very convoluted, strange. And weirdly, because of manorialism, I always thought feudalism, I mean, in a lot of ways, it was, things haven't changed much. I mean, things have changed, but in manorialism, the manor system, we would have a hospital that was free. We'd have, well, obviously, we had a store of food. We would take care of people with special needs. We would take care of retired people. We had a whole system in place to take care of everybody. And
Mm.
to me, manorialism still sits as a beautiful thing. Sadly, you also had feudalism at the same time, and that's the helmet. Those are the helmets I wore at that time. So there you go, right there.
I love that you have visual aids.
Yes, feudalism. So you get a real taste. This and the maybe the last few chapters are the yeah, this chapter and the last few chapters are the only real times we ever interact in this book with any of those systems, with
Mm-hmm.
the king who's the king over everything.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a few books about the Arthurian legends that spend a lot more time talking about these things, but this book, Feudalism, just it's a thing. And fortunately, Sir Ector, in his own reminiscings, his own thoughts, his own ideas, explains some of the issues to us. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And as we kind of look towards like the big boar hunt, and like you said, chapter 15 is very much that merriment before we go to battle, or or the hunt, and kind of that camaraderie. We kind of get this interesting sense of like everyone's relationship to one another, where it's like, even if you, because I guess to me it felt like the relationship would have been more strained between Master Twitty when he's like coming into his place,
Yeah.
but then it was like, hey, we're all going out there together, and so we're sharing, pass the port kind of thing, right? Like it's
Yeah.
like once you're like you're in it, and so like he's kind of accepting, which is kind of interesting, because I feel like in modern times that doesn't translate as well. Like if you're not on the same team, like that's it. Like we sit on this side of the arena, you
Sure.
guys sit on
Sure.
that side of the arena. There's no like we're all like in this together kind of feeling necessarily now. I feel like we're not sharing the port as nicely as like, because he was really mad in 14, and then come 15 he's just like, all right, we're all gonna have this merriment, and then we go on our way. And then it's like they're almost like you get a mission or a task and you're doing it together, then that brings people together kind of thing. I don't know.
Yeah. No, very much so. And I mentioned it last time about Master Twitey.
Hmm.
This is his career. This is his job. This is he full-time hunts boars and deer and everything else. So it's not a game to him. And
Hmm.
there's an interesting, I don't remember if it was the one before or the one after, and I
Yeah.
apologize, gentle
No,
listeners,
no.
where they talk about everyone wants to talk to him about the boar hunt, but we find out, pardon me, inside Twitey's mind that his favorite thing to hunt is rabbits, conies. And it's a very small little thing, but it's important. I know I've told you this story before about I was at the West Coast Relays as a discus thrower, and I walked out in the field to get my discus, and this very large man came over to hand me my discus. It was Wilt Chamberlain, and who was much bigger than you think. I mean,
I bet.
I've worked with the NBA guys.
How
Wilt
tall
was
is he? Like
if I said 7'4", but thing is, he was built like a normal person, so he
ah,
wasn't
right,
tall. He
just
was
scaled.
huge. So he hands me my discus, and I always joke, hand it down. My dad said, "Go get him, bum." He called me bum, and Wilt called my dad over. So Wilt and my dad stood out in the sector. Now you're not supposed to be out there, but nobody told Wilt what to do.
Right.
And, and after the track meet, I threw well. There's more to the story, but I later on with my dad, I said, "So Dad, did you talk to Wilt about basketball?" And he told me a life lesson I'll never forget. You never talk about a professional basketball player about basketball. You never talk to an actor. I've sat next to. You ever heard of Heather Graham? She's a famous actress.
Yes, yes.
So I sat next to her in a flight. I sat next to. He was just ahead of me. A guy running for president was just ahead of me. Liam Neeson was on a flight with me,
Mm,
and then the guy who played Voldemort was on a flight with me.
okay.
Yeah, and if I was sitting next to them, the thing I would not talk about
It's
is it
Voldemort.
or Voldemort.
Well,
Yeah.
you're not allowed to anyway. You can't say
So yeah, I can't say his name.
you can't
So
say his name, right?
with Twitey, he doesn't want to talk about boar hunting. But if you
Right.
really want to get him to talk, you talk about conies or rabbits, hunting.
Ah.
And it's a great little thing White tells us, because I always tell people that this book is a book about education.
Hmm.
And you got a good lesson there, but you probably missed it. The people who, I would love to meet Tom Hanks. I've never met a president, nor have I ever met Tom Hanks, and that'd probably be the end of my bucket list for my life. Okay,
Oh.
but well, certain presidents. Uh,
I agree.
but if I was hanging out with Tom Hanks, one of my friends is a river guide, and he takes Harrison Ford out all year, every
Hmm.
year, and he says that Harrison is kind of grouchy. But the reason he's grouchy is he doesn't want to talk about Indiana Jones.
Right.
He doesn't want to talk
Or
about
Star
Star Wars.
Wars.
He wants
He
to talk
definitely
about
doesn't want to talk
trout.
Star.
He
Yes.
wants to talk about trout, and it's an interesting life lesson. It's just a throwaway 10 seconds. And also too, we're really meeting Pellinor. Now, Pellinor is going to okay, spoiler alert. In the next chapter, we're going to lose Pellinor again for a while. But then we're going to meet him again. So I've thought for a while, even when I was writing this, I didn't know how to explain it well, that in this book, Pellinor is that character who just kind of, I don't know, maybe in movies, maybe he's, he's the character that is always there. Now, if you're going to drop somebody out of the book, you could drop out Pellinor, but Pellinor is part of every key scene. So when Wart Arthur gets lost in the forest, he meets Pellinor. When he wants to find out about jousting, Pellinor and Gummerson joust, and then Pellinor moves in. Pellinor has been moved in for a long time. In the next chapter, he's going to move out. Then a couple chapters later, we're going to meet him again, and then of course, in the later books, in the next book, which is sometimes called Candle in the Wind, or there's another title, the woman, Candle in the Wind, or Witch in the Woods.
Yeah.
Uh, Candle in the Woods. Okay, Witch in the Woods, and we're going to meet Pellinor again, and then we don't see Pellinor ever again. I don't want to ruin the book, but I just think White does a really good job with him as this thing. Now, if you read certain books, I know for sure if you see it in Genesis, certain words will just keep kind of, and they mean a certain thing. In the Iliad, this word called, depending on how you translate it, I think it's best translated rage, because wrath doesn't work. He said, my translations will have both. But rage is this crazy angry that only gods get, or Achilles. So the word would show up in the stories in a certain, and it tells you this is more. Now, of course, we don't use, it would be hard to find that. But it's that lean in, it's that blink. It's like in a Stephen King movie, if all of a sudden you saw a clown's head. Unless you knew Stephen King's, and I guess in some of his books he'll do that. He'll bring a character in from another book, just, pop them in. You see it I guess in the fourth Indiana Jones, the one I didn't like, he has on his desk pictures of the characters who in real life have died, so are not in this next one.
Okay. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
They're little Easter eggs. Yeah. You
yeah,
call them.
that's kind of it. Yeah. So
Yes.
Pellinor is a 1930s Easter egg. And I like, actually, that's not a bad way to say that. Easter egg. I like, because that's kind of what I'm saying. It's like,
Right. Right.
and
I
you,
understand what you mean. Yeah.
yeah, and you probably could write an entire book on Pellinor. It'd be, I don't know how good it would be,
Well,
how many
you
people,
could.
well, and
Not
just keep
me.
bringing up, and just keep bringing up his little moments, which are lots, and he's in a lot of this book. I don't have, like, I don't know if I would ever do the math and figure it out, but
Yeah.
he's in a lot of this book.
It's like that
Um,
supporting character that is like always there, but not so notable that everyone talks about, but it's like he's like a constant. Like you said, he's in the
yeah,
forest when where it gets lost, and he's in the jousting scenes. And but then I think it's interesting because if someone were to ask me, I'd be like, well, I wouldn't be able to like give this such a definitive description of his importance, I guess, when you think about all the characters of the book.
yeah, but again, he keeps showing up,
Yeah.
and he just, and for a minor character, that might be a really good thing to study. The story of Pellinor. If I was young and looking for another article or another master's thesis, that might be something I would do. But I'm not. So
I feel like you've really explored this book quite a lot, though. And as we continue that study, well,
Yeah, and there's no
kind
need for
of.
me, no need for me to keep going.
No, but kind of jumping on what you mentioned with not necessarily talking to someone about their actual profession. That is a little bit of what I do during this podcast.
Yeah,
So
well,
usually I have people on here and there's like a little hint of yes, of course you're a strength coach and you'll have stories and whatnot,
yeah.
but usually that's not what we talk about. And the same goes for my other guests as well. I'm not always talking about, you know, the book they wrote. I mean, we'll always shout it
Sure.
out, of course, but yeah, I find that
Well, I can certainly talk about all the things I've written, but I would probably get myself bored. Hey, you know what? I'm having a hard time finding the end of this chapter. I want to mention one more thing. I
14 or
apologize.
15.
Okay,
15 is
oh,
on page
so
one. Oh, wait, I'm on
I
digital. So
got, don't worry.
yeah.
Okay, so what's interesting about this
174.
one,
Yeah.
what's interesting about this is so they sing the God Save Our King song.
Mm-hmm.
God save our something king, send him. Okay. But the last little bit is interesting. Now just listen to this. So it's the end of the night, they've been drinking hard, they've been talking, and it says, the last notes died away, the hall emptied of its rejoicing humanity, of its rejoicing humanity. Lanterns flickered outside in the village street as everybody went home in hands for fear of the moonlit wolves. And the castle of the forest sauvage slept peacefully and lightless. And then the final line, in the strange silence of the holy snow. I read that line. I didn't read it very well, but I want to make sure I read it slowly because everybody's going to sleep. Everyone's kind of falling asleep as that last chapter ends. And then, of course, 16 starts with the wart got up very early next morning. So
Mm-hmm.
it's this kind of it's it's nice to have a chapter end on there's wolves out there, but we're all going home after having a few beverages. It's the moonlight, there's the snow, and it's holy snow because we've just blessed it with our songs. And I don't know, I just thought that's a really fabulous way to end a chapter, you know. And now the next day, Wart wakes up excited. People are so nervous they can't eat. Very few people can keep food down. Everyone's kind of joking. Here, have some, you know, when people, I don't know if you've ever been around a lot of stressful situations where you're getting ready to go. And, I mean, Invincible, the movie with Mark Wahlberg,
Mm-hmm.
playing for the Philadelphia Eagles, famously
Oh,
before his
okay.
game, he throws up in the toilet. It's very
Mm-hmm.
common for people to throw up under
Mm-hmm.
high pressure. And at the same time, it's also people also offer you all kinds of things knowing that your stomach is queasy. I've been getting ready for football games, and you look over and you'll just see a face on it, especially at the high school level, of a kid like this. Maybe they're starting their first game, or they found out that someone's hurt and they have to step up, and very often they can't hold down anything. They don't even want to drink water because they're so nervous. And of course, after the first hit, the nervousness disappears.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I just I just think that there's been a few chapters like this in the book that are kind of staging points. You just feel like right now things are about to happen. In my notes, I talk about how really well done the whole book has been, and I still am convinced that the Robin Wood section is the middle of the book. Chapters building up to it, the big chapters building down. Now we've had two straight chapters after the Robin Wood. Wart's been healed, okay, and now we have a transitionary chapter, or a little bit and a little bit more, where now we're setting up for another dangerous creature to deal with, and that's the boars. And we've just dealt with, depending on the version, supernatural evil, and now we're back to natural evil.
Yeah, so this is a very realism.
Yeah,
There's no, wizardry or anything like that happening in this kind of lead up, which I find interesting because it kind of pulls you kind of back and forth. Like you kind of get this like, you're in and out of this world, right? You get to kind of step one foot in and then step one foot back out, and they're not like becoming the animals or anything. They're literally like in the fight. But when you read that passage right before, the tail end of 14, or sorry, 15 leading into 16, I was just thinking to myself, and then you said, "Oh, do you ever have stressful moments?" And I thought, yeah, every like 30 minutes, it feels like I'm having a stressful moment. But it would just be so nice for like all of us every night to have that. And now it's, lightness and just to be able to sleep. And I feel like most people aren't getting that on a daily basis or a monthly basis, especially at this point in time where everything's so crazy. And, we open talking about war, but like that that setting, that, oh holy night, that like how kind of you read it, made it seem like, and now we go to sleep. And yeah, I felt a little bit of that calm, but I don't think a lot of us are feeling that calm, especially when we're supposed to.
Right. And the other thing about this, I don't know if you've ever seen 13th Warrior, but it's based on Beowulf. It's based on a
Okay.
Michael Crichton version of it. I like it a lot, but the idea, and of course you get this from the Iliad and the Odyssey, you get this from Beowulf. Somebody is asked to stand up and then they recite a massive poem. Someone is asked to stand up and they tell a story. Someone, and then we all sing these songs together. I'll be out to dinner, it happened the other night. So I've asked my family not to use cell phones at meals, just, and it was fun because we were at this Japanese place here in town. It's very good. And they put on the show, they put on the show, and which is fun. And the food's good. The sake pours
Like the
freely.
teppanyaki where they cook in front of you.
Yeah, yeah, there you
Okay.
go. Thank you. Yeah. And my grandson was there and Nolan was with me and we were just sitting there and it was just a three men's night out. And we talked and Nolan and Danny talked about all kinds of things. And I just kind of sat there happy that Nolan and Danny were talking. And I looked over at the family that was sharing our, and all of the kids were either playing games or watching shows on their iPhones.
Mm-hmm.
And if I would have said to anybody, tell me a story, the answer would be, what? And that say takes that 30 seconds to go from your screen to reality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What? And contrast that with a whole bunch of people sitting around. Hey, stand up and sing, Mimi. Hey, Danny, tell us a story. Okay. Hey, let's all sing the play, whatever, the Star Spangled Banner and Sweet Home Alabama or whatever. It doesn't matter. But, and we're all expected to be there, present. Now, tomorrow they're going to go on a hunt and you have to be present at a hunt.
Mm-hmm.
It's called situational awareness. I'm coming out with a new book and it's on training the youth athlete. And one of the things I talk about is, I grew up at a dinner table with, well, ultimately, of the eight of us in our family, four saw very terrible. My dad, Ray, Gary, and Phil all were, in action. None of them were, they were in serious firefights, big time injuries, lots of bad things. My brother Richard, of course, we always joke he had it the worst. He was stationed in Oklahoma. Family joke. My sister Corrine, of course, had two boyfriends go to Vietnam. My mom, of course, had to deal with her husband, her brothers, her uncles, her family in wars. And of course, myself, I had to grow up in it. One of the things we used to talk about at the dinner table, it wasn't not very often, but it was situational awareness. If you feel something's wrong, trust your instincts. If you hear something, you know, find cover, hide. Trust your instincts, stay alert, stay aware. And yet, I really feel, I was in Disneyland, November, and I got cut off so many times by people whose heads were in their phone in Disneyland. I'll be at weddings and people be looking at scores. I don't know what sport you're into, but you're at a effing wedding. There's
Mm-hmm.
that's where you should be. So I guess I feel like I'm starting to rant a little bit, but
No, I actually love this being present in situational awareness. I think we need those reminders.
yeah. So you've
Yeah.
got these. So you've got this whole collection of people from King Pellinor to Twitey to Ector and Gummerson and Kay and Wharton, everybody else in the whole village. They're all there and they all join in the song and they all join in. And then when it's over, they all walk quietly home to go to sleep. And it's delightful.
Yeah. Do you think there is something about like that is now that you've mentioned it, you kind of get the flashes of each of these films and books and things you've read, and there is always like singing, or like you said, they get up and it is actually singing. They're usually singing. Like it, what is it about that like incantation together? And then
Okay,
you are religious, so I know at church there's a lot of song that you get up and sing songs together, and in
together.
Buddhist religion there's chanting, and there's something very, I don't know, like uplifting or soulful about like kind of having that. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Because I have never
So
really thought about it before.
it's a terrible movie, but it's called The Hobbit. And it
Yeah.
didn't,
I didn't watch it. I couldn't.
it was it was like the last two were like, why couldn't you have made you could have done this, you could have done The Hobbit in 2 hours and been a great. But in the first one, when the dwarves all show up at Bilbo's house and they get together and they start to sing, it is a pardon me, it is a gorgeous moment. Uh, and they all have big, deep voices, and it's just a gorgeous moment. Yeah, I also know that if you want to feel braver, have someone beat on a drum and have us chant together. It makes you feel better. There is something magical. I'm going to bore you real quick with the story, but my senior year, we won two games, basically in the last 20 seconds. In high school football, it never happens, but it happened 2 weekends in a row. And the first weekend, we played our arch rival, and we just barely beat them. And I mean, there's hatred in those two schools. So we were exhausted. And then sadly, the next week, the best team in the league came to our house. Seconds to go left in the game. We score, and we go out there on defense, and I'm staggered back into the secondary, and all of a sudden, there's this roar, defense, defense. And it honestly, I would say you could feel, whoa, whoa, whoa. And Frank Caesar looks over at me and says, they ain't gonna effing, he said the other word, they ain't gonna effing score. And I said, they ain't gonna effing score. And it was they couldn't have. That it was like chung, 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 chung. And we were just absolutely elevated. And I've been to funerals. Well, I tell you one thing, when they sing Danny Boy, it makes me cry, you know. Amazing Grace, done well, will make you sob because even if you're not a believer in anything, it's and we all know it at some level. We all know it. If you really want to get fired up, you know, if I'm getting fired up to make a lift, I don't crank on Scarborough Fair by Simon and Garfunkel. It's a great song, but nor the song, the 57th Street Bridge song, Feeling Groovy. I don't use that one either. You know, I might use Warsaw Concerto or Bolero. I'm not going to use so yeah. So I just think that's part
Bolero,
of
I
who we
like
are.
it.
So when we're sitting around the fires in human history, and when we first started to talk and share, that's how we used to learn, and I still think it's the best way. So
Mhm.
I still think it's the best.
Yeah, when we went to Machu Picchu, our guide was a local, and it kills me because I can't even remember his local language that he spoke, but he said nothing was ever written down. So everything was only done through storytelling. And because of that, he was such a great guide because they come from a long line of storytellers. He's like, our language, like we didn't really write it, like it was mainly storytelling, or it was lost by the time it got to them. I don't know the
Yeah.
exact
Was
history,
it
but
the
like
language tin call?
I'm honestly not gonna. I
Yeah,
probably won't. I may have written it down. Oscar probably wrote it in his journal.
That's okay. That's okay.
But
That's
yeah,
great.
and he probably speaks multiple, right? But he said like the main one, it was like, no, we
Yeah.
just tell stories and that's how we keep it going. And we don't really, there wasn't a lot of written. And so because of that, like, yeah, he was such a great guide because he was such a great storyteller. And he comes from, like you said, sitting around the campfire and being able to share. But when you were like kind of talking about the chanting, and it felt very tribal, and now that I think about it, like we go like way back, right? Like all the tribes, there would be chants and things at the war line, and like the New Zealand blacks do their haka,
Yeah.
dance
Yeah.
chant,
Yeah.
and it's really intimidating.
So I like this. There's a very good Star Trek: The Next Generation. I'm sure dating myself.
Hmm.
Um, and it'd be worth if you can. It's uh, Picard is pulled off the flagship because this other country they find that they cannot communicate, and both sides are absolutely frustrated. But it's a very interesting story. And finally, Picard tells him the story of Gilgamesh,
Hmm.
the Babylonian Akkadian epic, and because this culture uses analogies to speak.
Okay,
So
yeah.
and that's their language. And when you say somebody is dead, you say somebody in Darmok went to the river, and that means somebody died because it's a song. It was a story.
Yeah.
So they took stories so literally they became the language. And Darmok might be the episode's name, but it's well worth watching
Hmm.
because it ties into what. So you can even get in your own way. You know, I have a I have a very good, I have a hard time watching even a Marvel movie without linking up to, the Iliad, the Odyssey, I've never been a fan of the word myth. Myths are story that tell a truth. And,
Okay.
and so the other day, Erica was reading one of Aesop's fables, and it's called Androcles and the Lion. It's also been repeated as the Lion and the Mouse, where the mouse pulls a thorn out of the
Hmm. Hmm.
it's same genre. Well, I mean, you could try to explain karma to a class. You can try to, I always use the word karma boomerang, every time you do something nice or bad, you throw karma boomerang, and you just never know
Hmm.
when it's going to hit you,
Hmm.
you just never know. I'll be honest, people work with me in my business ask why I do so many podcasts. And it's like, I don't know, maybe one day I'll be stuck somewhere and Mimi will come pick me up. I don't know.
I would
It doesn't,
absolutely come pick you
and
up.
there's no, and if she can't, somebody else will do it. That's okay. Uh, but when you're studying, Androcles and the lion, a student can read that story and go, "Oh, okay, so if you do something nice, it'll come around later on, maybe." Yeah, okay, because it does. And you can also go into all kinds of heavy theology, or you can just tell a story, or you can just tell a story. And by the way, both work. Going to Harvard and studying Kohlberg's moral development works. Telling kids Aesop's fables work. It all works.
Mhm. Are you
Hey,
excited about the Odyssey? Sorry
oh,
to
this
interrupt.
summer, yeah, and word on the street is that the actor it's the actor's best work ever. So
Yeah,
it should be very, very, very exciting.
I'm
Um,
pretty excited. And we're going to Greece, but I wanted to go to Greece after, or like I wanted to, I don't know which way order I wanted to be in, but it's kind of fun because, you know,
yeah, I'll be in Crete in June, so I don't want
ah,
to.
so close.
Yeah, I don't want to but I'm excited about being there. Yeah, but there are certain things, and Carl Jung picked it up, and of course Joseph Campbell really ran with it. But in Western Civ, the hero is always an orphan, and Jung explained that because that way we can all adopt them. Uh,
Oh,
isn't that a
okay.
beautiful, simple way to say that?
Yeah.
There is my child, but when you
Yeah.
go through, I mean, and of course the other problem is it's your problem as a hero is always the fact you don't know your dad is. Of course, that's Oedipus, but Jesus of Nazareth, Moses, Superman, Batman, King Arthur doesn't know who his father is, doesn't know, and that causes huge problems in the upcoming books. Well,
Yeah.
Spider-Man. Spider-Man's raised by his uncle. Luke Skywalker doesn't know who his dad is, and that causes big issues.
Mm.
It is something you see constantly. And it's funny because in this version that we're reading, The Sword and the Stone, the fact that Arthur doesn't know who he is makes him able to learn more than, say, Sir Kay, who knows who he is.
Mm.
And then, of course, then the other problem shows up in the rest of the Camelot, where by not knowing who his father and mother were, all the other things happen. So there you go.
Yeah, I was very distraught that I went on to read the other books because they're so not very hopeful. They're so dark comparatively. And it was kind of like when I read The Princess Bride versus the film. And I was like, I really wish I had never done that. I
Yeah,
really wish I had never done that because it's like my favorite film of all time. And
that's
and
fun.
yeah, reading the book was devastating to me.
Yeah, it's completely different. Yeah, but it's interesting because over on Literary Hub, they're having a weird people vote for thing, the best adaptation ever from a book to a movie. And right now, it's coming. The last two are they're head to head starting Monday. Princess Bride versus the Return of the King from the Lord of the Rings, which
Mm.
I thought was funny because I thought the best adaptation I've ever seen is To Kill a Mockingbird.
Oh,
So
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
That's
thought
a
that
great
I
adaptation,
they had to drop a few things out, but boy, not much. Oh, another
especially
great
for the
adaptation.
year it was made. I
Yeah.
mean,
And I also, well, The Godfather is a pretty amazing adaptation too,
mm,
but I think more people are going to cheer on Princess Bride because of, it's just more fun. I mean,
yeah, it's The Princess Bride. But
it's
in
not
terms of adaptation, I mean, yes, I guess as long I guess it depends how you describe that, right? Because it's
adaptation,
not
sure.
like it's
Yeah.
going to be like kind of based on sort of thing, but it's not
Yeah.
like an actual like print of,
Right.
oh,
Yeah.
this is just like the film or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just
This
like the
this
book. Yeah,
this this Disney adaptation is good and it's fun, but
yeah.
I think they could have done a much better job, but hey, I mean, that's just me. So I got to be a little careful on that because, I'm kind of it's my favorite book. Hey, I'm going to have
Yes,
to
it sure
bounce here.
is.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Um,
Not a problem. It was always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much. We'll pick up at the boar hunt at 16. So that's exciting because
yeah.
that
So for those of you
happens.
following along, the boar
Get
hunt,
your tissues ready.
it is actually, it's a beautiful scene. Do we get, it's probably the only, I'm trying to think if there's any good guy deaths in the book. Okay.
Mm,
It might be the only one. Yeah.
okay. Well,
Prepare
thank you.
yourselves.
Prepare. Enjoy all of your upcoming events. Safe
Thank you.
travels. I'll reach out and I would like to hear more about your books, by the way. I never want to brush over that. So next time maybe you can just mention them.
Absolutely. You bet. Oh, we're
Okay.
glad to. We'll see you in
Thank
a
you,
month or two. Okay.
Danny. Okay, bye.
Bye.
That's all for today's episode. Thanks for listening to the Sifu Mimi Chan Show. Please subscribe and rate my podcast on your platform of choice and leave a review. You can become a patron of the show at patreon.com/SifuMimiChan to help keep this podcast going. Follow me and interact on social media at Sifu Mimi Chan on Instagram or Facebook.